Hello, everyone. Welcome to the channel. It's the 30th of December today, and we're absolutely thrilled to have you with us. As we approach the end of this year, we've got some exciting updates to share. So, sit back, relax, and let's dive straight in. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to stay up to date with all the latest news. Tommy Robinson's situation remains a highly contentious topic as the world approaches the new year. Behind bars, he continues to endure what can only be described as a grim and deeply troubling reality. As the festive season looms, a time traditionally filled with joy and togetherness, Tommy is isolated from his loved ones, separated from his family during a time when they should be celebrating and making memories. This alone is enough to make his story heart-wrenching, but what has transpired in recent weeks has only added layers of outrage to his plight. The most alarming and shocking development is the manner in which Tommy is being treated while incarcerated. Reports have surfaced that Tommy is being held under the harshest and most stringent conditions, those typically reserved for individuals considered to be the most dangerous offenders. His supposed crime? Sharing a video. Yes, you heard that right, simply sharing a video. It's a crime that, in any other circumstance, would likely be seen as an ordinary act, but in this case, it has led to Tommy being subjected to what can only be described as a form of state-sanctioned punishment. It's a clear and deliberate attempt to suppress his voice and actions, to silence him and anyone who might support his cause. In an attempt to stifle any further discussion or solidarity, visitors to Robinson are reportedly being forced to sign gag orders, agreements that legally prohibit them from discussing their visits or revealing any details about what transpired during their time with him. This adds another disturbing layer to the story, as it speaks to the extreme lengths to which authorities will go to keep this situation under wraps. The gag orders represent an attempt to control the narrative, to ensure that nothing gets out, nothing that might shed light on the injustices taking place within the prison walls. One of Tommy's closest supporters, John, is sitting at his kitchen table one evening, reviewing the latest reports on Tommy's case. His wife, Sarah, enters the room, concerned. "I still can't believe it," Sarah says, shaking her head. "How can they just lock someone away like that, for sharing a video?" John looks up from his phone, his expression grim. "It's ridiculous, love. They're treating him like a criminal mastermind when all he did was express his views. And now, they're silencing anyone who tries to speak about it." Sarah frowns, leaning against the doorframe. "It doesn't make any sense. If they really wanted to lock him up for something, they'd have to be honest about why, wouldn't they? But they're just sweeping it all under the rug. This whole gag order business is beyond me." "I know," John responds, rubbing his temples. "It's like they're making up the rules as they go along. They're desperate to control the narrative, to paint him as some sort of villain. And if anyone dares to speak out in his defense, well, they'll be shut down too. It's like something straight out of a dystopian novel." At the same time, Emma, a longtime supporter of Tommy, is having a conversation with her friend, Laura, at the local cafe. They're both concerned, but Laura is becoming more and more outspoken about what's happening. "I just don't get it," Emma says, her voice low. "Why can't they just leave him alone? He's done nothing wrong, other than speak his mind." Laura sips her tea, her eyes narrowing with frustration. "Exactly. It's like they're treating him like some kind of criminal for simply having a different point of view. And now they're going as far as to force his visitors to sign these ridiculous gag orders. It's all so sinister." Emma nods in agreement. "I feel like we're living in a time when people's voices are being silenced left, right, and center. And if you're not saying what the powers that be want to hear, you're marked." Tommy is just the latest example of that. As the conversation continues, they both begin to realize just how dangerous this situation could become. It's not just about one man's freedom, it's about the future of free speech itself. If Tommy Robinson, a man who has made his views known publicly, can be locked away and treated as a political prisoner, what's to stop others from facing the same fate? Back in London, David, a journalist known for his investigative work, is discussing the case with his colleague, Michael. They've both been following the developments closely, and the more they learn, the more concerned they become. "So, let me get this straight," David begins, leaning forward. "Tommy Robinson, who's been a thorn in the side of the government for years, is now being treated like one of the country's most dangerous criminals, all because he shared a video? That's right, Michael replies, his brow furrowed. And it's not just that. He's being kept in solitary confinement, which is reserved for the worst of the worst. It's a way of punishing him, isolating him from the rest of the world. And on top of that, they're silencing anyone who dares to speak about his case. The gag orders are just a tool to make sure no one can come forward with the truth. David shakes his head, incredulous. It's chilling, isn't it? The more I look into it, the more I see how dangerous this situation is. If we let this go unchecked, who's next? What's to stop the government from going after anyone who doesn't fit the narrative? That's exactly what worries me, Michael says, his voice filled with concern. Once they've silenced one person, it sets a dangerous precedent. And if people don't speak out now, we could lose our ability to speak freely forever. As the days pass, it becomes increasingly clear that Tommy Robinson's case is not just about one man, it's about the very fabric of free speech in the UK. With each passing day, his supporters grow more determined to see justice done. They're rallying, speaking out, and refusing to back down, despite the risks. They understand that what's at stake is far bigger than Tommy himself. It's about standing up for the fundamental right to speak one's mind, to voice dissent, and to challenge the powers that be without fear of retaliation. But for now, Tommy remains behind bars, enduring conditions that would break the spirit of most. His supporters, however, are not deterred. They continue to push for his release, to challenge the system that seeks to silence him. And in the background, the story continues to unfold, with more revelations, more questions, and more concerns about the direction in which the country is heading. In this fight, there are no easy answers, no quick fixes. But one thing is clear, Tommy Robinson's struggle is a symbol of something much larger, a fight for freedom of speech, justice, and the right to speak out against injustice, no matter who you are. Elon Musk's unexpected involvement in the case of Tommy Robinson has created a ripple effect, one that has sent shockwaves through the political landscape. A man known for his outspokenness on free speech, Musk has never been one to shy away from controversial topics. But his recent comments, where he called Tommy Robinson a political prisoner, have taken the matter to a whole new level. It was a simple statement, yet it has ignited a storm, adding fuel to the already blazing fire that has surrounded Robinson's case for months. In the wake of Musk's intervention, the narrative surrounding Tommy Robinson has shifted dramatically. No longer is it just a local issue within the UK, now, it has gained global attention, drawing in the tech mogul and billionaire who has become a symbol of free speech. Musk's words were more than just a passing comment, they were a direct challenge to the narrative that has been pushed by British authorities and the media for years. In calling Robinson a political prisoner, Musk has aligned himself with a figure who many in the UK establishment would rather see silenced. But by doing so, Musk has also raised some important questions about the state of free speech and justice in the country. On the streets of London, the news of Musk's comments spreads quickly. In a local pub, a group of regulars are discussing the latest developments over a pint of ale. Michael, a longtime supporter of free speech, leans forward, his eyes wide with excitement as he speaks to his friends. "Did you hear what Musk said about Tommy Robinson?" he asks, his voice filled with disbelief. "He's called him a political prisoner. I mean, this could change everything, couldn't it?" Peter, who's been listening intently, shakes his head, a grin forming on his face. "I've always thought Musk was a bit of a madman, but fair play to him. He's not one to mince his words. And now he's made it clear, this whole situation with Robinson, it's political. And he's calling it out. But what's the real impact?" Laura, who's sitting at the table with them, asks. "I mean, the UK government isn't going to change their stance just because Musk said a few words, right?" "I wouldn't be so sure," Peter replies. "Musk has the kind of influence that could make a real difference. People are paying attention now. It's no longer just a domestic issue, it's global. And that's something the British establishment can't ignore." The conversation shifts, and the group begins to discuss the implications of Musk's support. The more they talk about it, the more they realize that it could be the catalyst for something bigger, something that might challenge the very foundations of the justice system in the UK. Meanwhile, across town, in a sleek office building, David, a political analyst, is sitting at his desk, reflecting on the latest turn of events. His phone buzzes, and he picks it up to see the tweet from Musk. His face lights up with recognition, and he immediately dials his colleague, Samantha. "Sam, you've got to see this," David says as soon as she picks up. "Elon Musk just weighed in on Tommy Robinson's case. He's calling him a political prisoner." Samantha's voice comes through the phone, tinged with surprise. "Are you serious? Musk? That's massive. I mean, if anyone has the power to shift public opinion, it's him." "I know," David responds. "This changes everything. It's not just about Robinson anymore, it's about what Musk's statement represents. The narrative has shifted. And now, the British government has to answer to a much larger audience. They can't just keep this under wraps." Samantha pauses for a moment, clearly processing the weight of the situation. "Do you think this will make any difference, though? I mean, Musk's support could backfire. He's not exactly beloved by everyone." David sighs, leaning back in his chair. "It's true, Sam. Musk's opinions often divide people. But the key here is that he's standing up for free speech. And that's a message that resonates with a lot of people, especially those who feel like the government's been suppressing voices they don't like. If anything, Musk's involvement is going to make it harder for the UK establishment to continue ignoring this case." Back in the pub, the conversation continues to evolve. Michael and Peter are still talking about Musk's role in the unfolding drama. "I mean, think about it," Michael says, gesturing animatedly with his pint glass. "Musk has millions of followers, people who hang on his every word. He's not just some random person saying this stuff, he's a heavyweight. And by backing Robinson, he's brought this issue to the forefront in a way no one else could." Peter nods, his gaze thoughtful. "And it's not just about Musk being famous. It's about the message he's sending. He's not afraid to take on the system. And that's something a lot of people respect. If more people start speaking up like he has, maybe things will start to change. Maybe it won't be so easy for the authorities to just keep stamping down on people they don't like." As the night wears on, the group continues discussing the ramifications of Musk's involvement. They realize that while the UK establishment might try to downplay Musk's support, it's going to be difficult to ignore the growing international attention. With someone like Musk now in Robinson's corner, the situation has escalated far beyond a domestic issue. It's become a global conversation, one that the British government may soon find themselves unable to control. Across the globe, the ripple effect of Musk's words continues to spread. In the US, news outlets begin to pick up the story, reporting on the tech mogul's involvement and what it could mean for the future of free speech in the UK. The narrative is shifting, and more people are starting to ask questions. Why is Robinson being treated in this way? Why is the UK government going to such extremes to silence him? Back in London, David and Samantha continue to discuss the implications of Musk's intervention. They both agree that while it's still early to predict how things will play out, one thing is certain: Musk's statement has raised the stakes, and it's forced the British establishment into a position where they can no longer ignore the issue. "I think the whole narrative has changed," David says. "What Musk has done is open up a conversation that the government would rather not have. It's given people a reason to question everything they've been told about Robinson and his case. And I don't think that's something the authorities can easily dismiss." Samantha agrees. "It's like they've lost control of the narrative now. This isn't just about one man in prison, it's about free speech, the rule of law, and whether the government is abusing its power to silence dissent. Musk's support has made this bigger than Robinson. It's made it about something much more fundamental." As the conversation winds down, it becomes clear that Musk's involvement in Tommy Robinson's case is more than just a passing comment. It's a game changer, one that has brought a new level of scrutiny to the situation. The establishment may try to push back, but with figures like Musk now in Robinson's corner, the pressure is only going to grow. And as the days pass, the question remains: how long can the UK government continue to ignore the growing chorus of voices demanding justice for Tommy Robinson? As the UK finds itself amidst a period of political tension and uncertainty, the case of Tommy Robinson has shed a glaring light on some of the darker corners of its justice system. Issues of fairness, transparency, and the treatment of dissenting voices have become central to the debate, and the hypocrisy surrounding Tommy's imprisonment is impossible to ignore. While Tommy remains confined in solitary, subjected to the harshest of conditions, others who have incited violence and stoked division are allowed to walk free, preparing to spend the holidays with their families. This stark contrast paints a picture of a system where the rules seem to apply differently depending on who you are, and it raises profound questions about the integrity of the justice system in the UK. In a small coffee shop in Manchester, a group of friends are gathered around a table, discussing the developments of the past few weeks. Adam, an outspoken critic of the government, is animated as he speaks to his friends, his frustration evident in his voice. "It's just not right, is it?" Adam says, shaking his head. "I mean, you've got Tommy in solitary confinement, and then you've got people like that Ricky Jones fella, who's inciting violence against conservatives, and is out and about like nothing's happened. What's going on?" His friend Sarah, who's always been more measured in her approach, leans back in her chair, considering his words carefully. It's funny how the system seems to turn a blind eye to some things while going after others. Tommy's in prison for speaking his mind, while others are out there stirring up trouble, and they don't even get a slap on the wrist. "It's blatant hypocrisy," Adam mutters, taking a sip of his coffee. "And it's all the more obvious now that Musk's got involved. He's called Robinson a political prisoner, and suddenly people are taking notice. The government can't just sweep this one under the rug." "Not anymore." Sarah nods, her eyes narrowed in thought. "That's the thing. Musk's support has given this case a global stage. It's not just a domestic issue anymore, it's something the whole world is paying attention to. And that puts pressure on the UK government. They can't keep pretending everything's fine while people are asking serious questions." Over in London, James, a political commentator, is discussing the case with his colleague, Emily, at their office. They've been following Tommy's story for weeks now, and the more they learn, the more concerned they become. "I've been following this case closely," James says, scrolling through his phone as he reads the latest reports. "And it's getting harder and harder to ignore the inconsistencies. Tommy's been locked away in solitary for sharing a video, while others who've actually incited violence are walking free. How is that even possible?" Emily sighs, her frustration mirroring James's. "It's a mess. And now Musk's waded in, calling Tommy a political prisoner. That's going to stir things up even more. The UK government's got to respond, but they don't exactly have a leg to stand on when it comes to fairness. They've backed themselves into a corner." James looks at her, his expression grim. "You're right. The whole thing is exposing cracks in the system. If this doesn't force some kind of change, I don't know what will. We're talking about a justice system that's supposed to be fair, but it's clear as day that it's not. People like Tommy, who challenge the status quo, are treated as criminals, while others are allowed to carry on without consequence." As they continue to discuss the situation, they both realize that Tommy's imprisonment isn't just about one man, it's a symbol of something much bigger. It's about the state of free speech in the UK and the extent to which the government is willing to go to suppress voices that don't fit their narrative. The hypocrisy is undeniable, and it's becoming harder for the government to justify their actions. Back in the coffee shop, Adam is still talking, his voice rising with passion. "This whole thing has opened my eyes. How can we sit here and pretend everything's fine when people like Tommy are getting treated like this? And now with Musk speaking out, it's like a big wake-up call for everyone." Sarah agrees. "It's true. I don't think the government expected this. They thought they could silence Tommy, lock him up, and that'd be the end of it. But now, with Musk's statement, it's become a global issue. People are waking up, and they're starting to ask questions." As the conversation winds down, the group can't help but feel that something is shifting. The narrative around Tommy Robinson has changed, and it's no longer just a local issue. It's a fight for free speech, for justice, and for fairness, and it's clear that the UK government is going to have to answer for their actions. The hypocrisy, the double standards, and the harsh treatment of those who dare to speak out are all being laid bare, and people are starting to take notice. As the days pass, more and more people are beginning to question the state of justice in the UK. The government's attempts to silence Tommy Robinson have backfired, and the involvement of Elon Musk has only made the situation more complicated for them. The global attention on the case is growing, and the pressure is mounting. Will the UK government be able to continue to justify their actions, or will they be forced to reconsider their stance? The implications of Musk's statement are far-reaching. His involvement has brought the issue of free speech and the treatment of dissenting voices into the public eye like never before. People are starting to see the cracks in the system, and they're beginning to question the fairness of the justice system in the UK. The hypocrisy of the government is clear, and as more and more people speak out, it's becoming harder for them to ignore. But what does this all mean for Tommy Robinson? Will the increased scrutiny force the authorities to re-evaluate his case, or will they continue to ignore the growing chorus of voices calling for his release? Only time will tell, but one thing is certain: the fight for justice is far from over. Before we wrap up, what do you think? Will Elon Musk's statement lead to greater scrutiny of Tommy's case? Do you believe the UK government will be forced to confront the hypocrisy of their actions, or will they continue to turn a blind eye? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more updates on this critical issue. Take care, and goodbye for now.